is the universal form. For those yogis who don't have the maturity, who are unable to concentrate on the spiritual form, the Paramatma, they are advised to concentrate, they are advised to meditate on the universal form, the Virata Rupa. So Virata Rupa is the Dharanashraya for such yogis. So therefore in 23rd shloka, Shukadeva Goswami said that having perfected the asanas and breathing, having given up the association, the bad association, jitasano, jitashwaso, jitasango, jitendriya, having perfected the asanas, breathing, having given up the bad association, having controlled the senses, stule bhagavato rupe. Stule bhagavato rupe, it refers to the universal form. One must concentrate the mind on the gross universal form of the Lord. Sandarayet diya, with one's intelligence. So we see that although the two-handed form, the four-handed form, the spiritual form of the Lord is superior, universal form of the Lord is material. But there are people who are not who are not in a position to appreciate the two-handed or four-handed form of the Lord. They can only appreciate something which is gigantic to be the form of the Lord. For such people who cannot, who can only appreciate, like for example, in the Western world, there was somebody who made a painting of God. He made a painting of a God as a person with a huge muscles, a lot of beard, and struggling to hold the universe. And he's carrying the universe in his head and is struggling to hold that universe. So they had the idea God means because he is holding the universe, he is carrying the universe. He must be really tired because he is the oldest person. He must be very old. He must be having beard. So sometimes people think that God means he must be something gigantic. He must be. It should cause some awe and reverence. So a person with the simple two-handed form, how can he be God? Sometimes people cannot appreciate that. So even for such people who are in the gross materialistic platform, in order to make them gradually advance for their purification, universal form is recommended. So the 24th shloka, the nature of the universal form is described. Visheshas tasya dehoyam stavishtascha staviyasam yatredam vyajyate vishwam bhutam bhavyam bhavachayat. So the universal form is more solid than the solid. Stavishtascha staviyasam is more solid, stronger than the more solid than the solid. Yatredam vyajyate vishwam bhutam bhavyam bhavat chayat. Within that universal form, the past, present, and future, everything is seen. Bhutam bhavyam bhavachasat. The 24th shloka describes the nature of the universal form. The 25th shloka, the current shloka, Sukadeva Goswami says that Andakoshe Shariresmin Saptavarana Samyute Vairaja Purusho Yoso Bhagavan Dharanashrayah. So he says that Andakoshe, within the universal shell. And this universal shell is made of Sapta Avarana. It is made of 7 layers. So within the universal shell, which is made of 7 layers, within this the universal form exists. And this universal form is called as the Vairaja Purusha. Vairaja Purusha is the name of the universal form. And this Vairaja Purusha is the Dharanashraya. It is the object of Dharana. The object of Dharana, object of meditation. So this universal form resides within the universal shell. So in the universe is having the breadth of 500 million yojanas. That means the diameter of the universe, I think. 500 million yojanas. And there are 7 coverings of the universe. Earth, water, fire. The 7 coverings are made of earth, and then water, fire, air, ether, false ego, and Mahatattva. So each covering is 10 times thicker than the previous covering. So within this universe, universal shell is the universal form. So this universal form is nothing but the gross body belonging to the totality of the jivas called Hiranyagarbha. So just like we have a gross body and we have a subtle body, and then there is Atma. So similarly, there is a gross universal form, there is a subtle universal form, and within that is the actual Atma, that is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the Antaryami. And the subtle universal form is called as Hiranya Garbha. And the gross universal form is called as Vairaja or Viraja. Vairaja Purusha. The gross universal form is called as Vairaja Purusha. Subtle universal form is called as the Hiranya Garbha. And the Antaryami is called as the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And this universal form is worshipped as the representative of Bhagavan. Therefore, universal form is also called as Bhagavan. Vairaja Purusho Yosav Bhagavan Dharanashrayah. And then from the next 26th to 37th shloka, the next 12 shlokas, the description of the universal form is given. So in this purport, if you see Prabhupada, how he has covered the purport, that in the Bhagavad Gita, it was proved that it has been proven that the original transcendental eternal form of the Lord is Krishna. But at the same time, he expands into so many forms and incarnations simultaneously without being diminished in his potency. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Although Krishna expands into many forms, but he does not diminish in his potency. He remains the complete. Although so many innumerable forms emanate from him. So, in the 11th chapter of the Gita, we see that how Krishna manifested the universal form to Arjuna. So, sometimes the people think that manifestation of the universal form is the climax of the Bhagavad Gita. That is the highest form. But then, when we go through the Gita, you see that the two-handed form is the most confidential form of the Lord. Higher than the universal form is the four-handed form. Even superior to that is the two-handed form. So Arjuna wanted to see the universal form in order because in the future many people may claim themselves to be God and cheat the people. If somebody claims himself to be God, he should be able to show the universal form. So that's a test for a person who claims himself to be God. Therefore, Arjuna asked Krishna to show the universal form, and Krishna also showed the universal form. So materialistic people think that the gigantic universal form men can think, although very imperfectly, of the huge universal space as big as the sun. So we read this purport. So we see that this universal form is described in the shloka, and then from next shloka onwards, 26 to 37, In 12 shlokas, the description of the universal form is given so that a yogi can meditate on the universal form. And then in the chapter, the most important shloka, I think the 39th shloka, that is a very important shloka. Although there is a detailed description of the universal form is given, the 39th or 48th shloka, there Shukadeva Goswami will give a very important conclusion. So 26 onwards. Patalametasya. Somebody can repeat after me. Patalametasya hi padamulam.
पातालमेतस्य हि पादमूलम्
Patanti paršnir rasatalam.
पठन्ति पार्ष्णीर्प्रदेरसातलम्
Mahatalam vishwasrujota gulpau.
महातलं विश्वसृजोऽथ गुल्फौ
तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्गे.
तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्गे.
And read the translation.
Hare Krishna. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatal planets. The ankles are the Mahatal planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets.
See, this universal form, it is the imaginary form of the Lord. Unlike when you see the form of Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayana, Narasimha, Rama, Krishna, these are all actually real forms of the Lord. But universal form, like for example, when you say Ram, Narasimha, Narayana, they are all performing their pastimes eternally in some Vaikuntha planet. But the universal form is not, is an imaginary form of the Lord. Prabhupada writes in some places. So it is like, for example, suppose you have a set of vegetables, some tomato, carrot, beetroot, beans, different vegetables are there. So by using those vegetables, somebody makes a picture. Somebody makes a picture, say in the floor. Somebody makes a picture of a man in the floor by keeping the vegetable in a particular posture. Particular this one, he makes a picture of a particular person in the floor. So actually, there is no actual person there. That person is an imaginary person. But the components of which the particular picture is made, they are real. The components are the actual, some vegetable. It could be tomato, it can be beans, or it can be beetroot, or it could be different vegetables. The components are real, but the person is unreal. Or, for example, another example, suppose in a stadium, 5,000 people are there. So those 5,000 people, they are standing in a particular formation. Each of them are wearing a particular kind of a different colored shirts. They are standing in a particular formation in a way that it depicts the map of India. It depicts the map of India. Sometimes during, say, Olympic inauguration or different other, this one, people stand in a particular way so that the logo of the Olympic is actually, other sports is actually exhibited. So when people are standing in a particular formation, the map of India is actually seen. So is there actually India there in the? No, there is no actually India within that stadium. India is a much bigger place. There is no actual India in that stadium. So although the Indian map is seen, but there is no actual India. There is an illusory India. but the components of that Indian map, which are the components of the Indian map, they are actually some real persons. Those 5,000 persons who stood in a particular way, and then the map of India is actually depicted. So the components are real, but that Indian map is that India is actually unreal. Similarly, Virata Rupa is like that. The components of which the Virata Rupa is made of, they are real. Patala planet, Rasatala planet, Mahatala planet, Talatala planet. So different planets become the different parts of the universal form. Everything in this universe, different planets, different Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or different animals, different living beings, they all become the different parts of the universal form. So all those components are real, but the entire universal form is an imaginary form. It's basically imaginary form which a yogi should meditate upon. When he meditates on the universal form, he becomes purified, and then he will become qualified to meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord. So if you see, Patala constitutes the bottom of the universal form. So 26 to 28 in 3 shlokas, how the 14 planets correspond to the different parts of the universal form, they are described. So Patala are the souls of the universal form. Pada Moolam. Rasatala planet is the Parshni Prapede. Rasatala planet are the heels of the universal form. Mahatala planets are the Gulfau, the ankles of the universal form. Talatala planet is the Jange, the calves of the universal form. So, just like when we take darshan of the deity, one starts taking darshan starting from the lotus feet. Similarly, meditation of the universal form also starts from the feet of the Lord. Therefore, first thing is told about the Patala. And the 27th shloka says that Sutala planet, Dve Januni Sutalam Vishwamurte. Sutala planets are the 2 knees of the Lord. And then Vitala planet, Urudvayam Vitalam Chat Mahipate. Vitala is the lower part of the 2 thighs, Vitala planet. And Nabasthalam Nabisaro Grinanti. Atala planet is the upper part of the thighs. Upper part of the thighs. And Mahitala is the hips of the universal form. And Bhuvarloka is the navel of the universal form. So these are all described in the this one. So on the 28th shloka, Urastalam Jyotiranikammasya. Urastalam Jyotiranikammasya. In the chest of the universal form, Swarga is situated. And Griva Mahar. Griva means neck. In the neck of the universal form, Maharloka is situated. Vadanam Vai Janosya. Vadana means face. The face of the universal form, Janaloka is situated. And Tapo Raratrim Vidur. The forehead of the universal form is known as Tapaloka. And then the top of the head of the universal form is Satyaloka. Satyam cha Shirshni Sahasra Shirshnaha. So 26, 27 and 28 describe that how the 14 planets are situated in the different parts of the universal form. So Prabhupada writes a little important purport here. I'll go through some of the points. So outside the bodily existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the manifested cosmic existence has no reality. Because everything in the universe is included within the universal form. So everything and anything of the manifested world rests on him. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina mastani sarvabhutani nachagam teshvavastitah. Although everything rests on him, it does not imply that everything and everything in the vision of a materialist is the Supreme Personality. Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram bhuta brunnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. 9.4 and 5 Gita. So the conception of the universal form is through the conception of the universal form, Lord gives a chance to the materialist to think of the Supreme Lord, but the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording it over is not God realization. So a materialist wants to lord it over matter. So the universal form, in the universal form, we see that everything in the universe is included in the universal form of the Lord. So when a person meditates on the universal form, then gradually it dawns upon him that everything in this universe belongs to him. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Everything in this universe belongs to him. So gradually it dawns upon him that I am thinking of lording it over matter, but it is not my property. Everything belongs to him. In that way, he is gradually getting purified. So the materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord. So if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth, by conceiving of the universal form, he must cultivate the service attitude. So it's a very important section of the purport. So Prabhupada says that one must cultivate the service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of the Virata realization will have very little effect on the seer. So the service attitude that everything belongs to him, therefore I must utilize everything in his service. I must accept whatever is my quota. So meditation on the universal form, it unconsciously gives the idea to him that this entire world is a property of the Lord. I must give up the propensity to lord it over matter. And Prabhupada is also encouraging that one must cultivate the service attitude. So the transcendental Lord is never a part of the material creation. He keeps his identity of the Supreme Spirit in all circumstances and never affected by the three modes of nature. And then Prabhupada says how the universe is divided into 14 planetary systems. There are 7 planetary systems downward, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. And then there are 7 up. So all these are described as the different parts of the universal form. So I covered the 27 and 28 also. That 27, 28. So here also Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka. So 26, 27, 28 describes how the different planets are the parts of the universal form. And further, from 29 and 30, in these two verses, Shukadeva Goswami describes senses, sense objects, and the presiding deity of the senses. 3 things. Our Indriya senses, sense objects, and the presiding deity of the senses. These 3 arise from the particular organ of the universal form. All these 3 arise from the particular organ of the universal form and the location of that organ. So this is described in 2 shlokas. Senses, sense objects, and the presiding deity of the senses. So we all have a sense, and then with the senses we try to enjoy certain sense objects. But we cannot enjoy the sense object without the sanction of a particular devata, the presiding deity of the senses. So these 3, all these 3 arise from the particular sense organ of the universal form and the location in which the sense organ is present. That is described in 29 and 30. You can repeat after me. Indradayo bhagava ahurusraha
Indradayo bahava ahurushra.
Karnau disha shrotramamushya shabdah.
Karnau disha shrotramamushya shabdah.
नासत्यदस्रौ परमस्य नासे
नासत्यदश्रौ परमस्य नाशे.
घ्राणोऽस्य गन्धो मुखमग्निरिद्धः
घ्राणोऽस्य
घ्राणोऽस्य
गन्धो
गन्धो
मुखमग्निरिद्धः.
मुखमर्दिनः
Read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. His arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears, and physical sound is his senses of hearing. His nostrils are the two Aswini Kumaras, and the material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire.
So Prabhupada writes in one purport, the universal form description comes repeatedly in second and third canto. In one of the purport, Prabhupada says that after reading the universal form, one must come to the conclusion. He quotes the Ishopanishad first shloka. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magrida kasya svitanam. That Krishna is the proprietor of everything. Therefore, I must accept whatever is set aside as my quota. So description of the universal form in the 11th chapter of the Gita is further explained in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada quotes 11th chapter, 38th shloka. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all the people in your blazing mouth and covering all the universe by your innumerable rays. In that way, Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study of the student of the Gita. Both of them are the signs of Krishna, the absolute truth. So they are interdependent. So the conception of the universal form includes all the various devatas, different devatas in the universe, how they are all situated in the different parts of the universal form. That is what we are seeing in these two shlokas. So even the minutest part of a living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. One purport Prabhupada says that even in the act of evacuation, one is under the control of some devata called as Mitra. So since the demigods are included in the gigantic form of the Lord, worship of the Lord, whether in his gigantic material conception or in his eternal transcendental form as Lord Krishna, also appeases the demigods and all the other parts and parcels, as much as watering the root of the tree distributes the energy to all the parts. So, for a materialistic person, worship of the universal form leads one to the right path. So, one need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. So, instead of worshipping demigod, if a person worships the universal form, and then gradually it will lead one to the right path. So, for example, in Bombay, there was a Govardhan Eco Village. The Govardhan Eco Village, there are some people who came to stay there. They are all more. They are all interested in studying the nature, and sustainability. They are interested in studying the environment. So they came to study and they attended some seminars there. And then after a few days, suddenly they were seen in the morning Mangalarti of Radha Vrindavan Bihari temple. So these people were not introduced to any bhakti. They attended only classes on environment, sustainability, etc. But after a few days, some of them were seen in the morning Mangalarti of Vrindavan Bihar. So then they started inquiring, like, what made you? How did you come to know about this? There's a temple inside the campus, and how did you come here morning 5 o'clock? They were least expected there. And then they told that, like, we are attending these classes and we are contemplating about it. And then we started thinking that what is giving inspiration to you to actually to contribute in this field of ecology, environment, sustainability? What is giving inspiration to you? We started thinking. And then we tried to do some research, what all are there in this particular campus of Govardhan Eco Village. Then we saw that, okay, this environment is, there's a soil biotechnology plant. Soil biotechnology plant is that all the waste in the Govardhan Eco Village, they are processed and they are reused. And even the whatever water goes, the drainage, they are all actually purified and then they are reused for growing different plants. That is one of the area of interest for all the environmentalists to study. So, like we studied all these things, and then we started thinking that what is giving inspiration to these people to work in this field. Then we actually figured out, oh, you also have a temple in the campus. Then we got intuition that the inspiration for you to do these activities is coming from your activities. You have other activities in the temple and other things also go on this campus. So then we wanted to find out that, therefore we came to the temple to find out what are the activities going on in the temple. So why I'm telling this example is that, so these people, they came there, they are like universal form worshippers because they were interested in the nature, environment, sustainability, etc. Because the universal form Virat Rupa worshippers, they meditate on the different parts of the universe as the limbs of the Lord. They are more interested in the nature, this one. But then through that, they were gradually drawn to inquire about the path of Bhakti Yoga. They were gradually drawn towards the two-handed form of the Lord. Therefore, Prabhupada says that for a materialist, worship of the universal gigantic form of the Lord leads one to the right path. So the real entity is the Lord himself and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in him only. The next shloka. Dyaurакшिणी चक्षुरभूत पतंगः
द्यौरक्षिणी चक्षुरभूत पतंगः
पक्ष्माणि विष्णोरहणि उभे च
पक्ष्मानि
विष्णोरहनि उभे च
तद्भ्रू विजृम्भ परमेष्टि दृष्ण्या
तद्भ्रूविजृम्भ परमेष्टिदृष्ट्या
मापोस्य तालु रसयेव जिह्वा
मापोस्य तालुरसैव जिह्वा.
Read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The sphere of outer space constitutes his eye pits, and the eyeball is the sun as the power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue. Hare Krishna.
So this 29 and 30, Vishwanath Chakravarti is giving that summary which I mentioned, that how the sense objects, the sense devatas, all of them arise from the organs of the universal form. So the sun devata arises from his eyes, and the form arises from his eyes. The day and night are the eyelashes of the form. The abode of Brahma is the movement of his brow. Varuna arises from his palate. The taste arises from his tongue. In this way, that different places of the demigod, different forms of the demigod, they all have their origin in the universal form. And then 31st shloka. 31st shloka, further he described that Chandamsi Anantasya Shiro Grinanti Damshtra Yama. Yama Sneha Kala Dvijani. Haso Janonmadakari cha Maya Duranta Sargo Yad Apanga Moksha. So Chandamsi, the Vedic meters, they are the top of the head of the universal form. Shiro Grinanti. And Yamaraj. Yamaraj is the Damshra, the front teeth of the universal form. Sneha Kala Dvijani. Sneha means affection. Is the two rows of affection in the two rows of the teeth. And Hasa, the smile of the universal form, is the Maya potency. Jana Unmadakaricha Maya, which illusions all men. And Duranta Sargo Yad Apanga Moksha. Yad Apanga means his glance. His glance is the Duranta Sarga, the insurmountable samsara. So, Sneha Kala means particles of affection for sons, etc. That affection is the two rows of the teeth. So, Prabhupada, so according to Vedic assertion, the material creation is the result of the Lord's casting a glance over the material energy, which is described herein as the most alluring illusory energy. Hasa Janma Unmadakari cha Maya. Maya is described as Janonmadakari, which bewilders all living entities. Jana Unmadakari. The conditioned souls who are allured by such materialism should know that the material temporary creation is simply an imitation of the reality. So when we read Prabhupada's purport, we should try to relate. Every section of the Prabhupada purport is basically Prabhupada is trying to explain some particular word in the shloka. So in this particular section of the purport, Prabhupada is explaining that Jana Unmadakaricha Maya. The conditioned souls are allured by such materialism should know that the material temporary creation is simply an imitation of the reality, and those who are captivated by such alluring glances of the Lord are put under the direction of the Yamaraj. So Prabhupada is relating with the second line. Damshtra Yamaha. And the Lord smiles affectionately, Sneha, displaying his teeth. And the third canto, Kapila Dev describes about how one should meditate on the smile of the Supreme Lord. Hasam Hare Ravanata Kilaloka Tivra Shokashru Sagara Vishoshana Matyudaram Sammohanaya Rachitam Nijamaya Yasya Bhrumandalam Munikrite Makaradvajasya. When a person meditates on the smile of the universal form, the ocean of tears accumulated because of the lamentation of the conditioned soul, that ocean of the tears get dried up by meditation on the smile of the Supreme Lord. And by meditating on the eyebrows of the Lord, one can conquer the effect of Kamadeva. So Prabhupada says that an intelligent person who can grasp these truths about the Lord becomes a soul fully surrendered unto him. And then 32nd shloka, that this can be continued later next week. If anybody has any questions, we'll take it.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. If you have any questions or comments, you can express.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice class, Prabhuji. It's like wonderful. One question, Prabhuji. I know maybe you might have answered. Why do the devotees should worship Krishna's original form and not the universal form, Prabhuji?
See, when we talk about universal form is a material form of the Lord. It's an imaginary form. when we talk about the path of pure bhakti, in the path of pure bhakti, the object of worship is the transcendental form of the Lord, not the universal form. It will also become clear in 2.1.39, 39th shloka. Although Shukdev Goswami is giving a very elaborate description of the universal form, but in the 39th shloka, he will say that the object of bhakti is not the universal form, it is the transcendental form of the Lord. And that particular shloka is analyzed in great detail by Jiva Goswami in the Bhakti Sandarbha. Recently, I was reading that. Two different explanations he gives. Sridhar Swami and Jiva Goswami, two different. So that 39th shloka, it will become clear that although universal form is described in detail, 25th shloka onwards, this one, but 39th shloka, you will say that the object of bhakti is the transcendental form of the Lord. At the same time, universal form is given for those people who are not eligible for that particular path. For a gradual elevation of them, universal form meditation is given.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Correct.
Just if anyone asks, we will wait. Meanwhile, in the beginning sloka, 25th sloka, in 7 elements, earth is not mentioned, Prabhuji, in the purport.
The purport.
Whereas Prakriti, material nature, is mentioned.
Yeah, Vishwanath Chakothakura has mentioned. The 7 layers are they are also mentioned elsewhere. Like in the description of the universal form, in certain places, some details are not there. In certain places, more details are given. In universal form description, you will find in second canto, first chapter. And then you will see in second canto, fifth chapter, fifth or sixth chapter. Again, you will see in second canto, 10th chapter. Again, you will see in third canto, I think, fifth or sixth chapter. Again, you will see universal form description in Kapila Dev's teachings, third canto, 26th chapter. And then again in fifth canto, it will come. So this comes repeatedly. The reason is also explained by the Acharyas, that because for a conditioned soul who is sleeping in the bed of Maya, who is sleeping in the sled of Maya, who cannot appreciate the transcendental passion to the Supreme Lord, first he should actually meditate on the universal form. And some places the universal form description is given in more detail. Some places it's actually described little briefly. For example, I mentioned in 2 shlokas describe that how the senses, sense objects, and the presiding deities of the senses, they all come from the universal form. But that is summarized in just 2 shlokas here. But this will be explained in more detail in Kapila Dev's description of the Sankhya Yoga, in his description of the universal form. So like that. The universe's 7 layers: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then false ego and Mahatattva.
And mind and intelligence is not mentioned again.
No, they are all included within the Mahatattva, false ego.
Oh, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandapranam. Related question actually, what Mataji was referring. So it's mentioned here in the purport that Numen and something like that, right? I'm not able to pronounce it. So what is that, Prabhu? What it connects to or related to? Is it?
There is phenomenal and noumenal. Phenomenal means gross. Noumenal means subtle. For example, Bhagavad Gita 7.2. The Prabhupada translates as Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshyam asheshatah yajnatva neha bhuyonyat jnatavyam avashishyate. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. Phenomenal means something which is gross. Numinous means subtle.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. And very nice class, Prabhuji. Very detailed. Thank you so much.
Right.
You mentioned that Hiranyagarbha is the subtle form of the material cosmic manifestation. Can you please put lights on that, Hiranyagarbha?
Yeah, Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Vairaja is the gross form, Hiranyagarbha is the subtle universal form, and Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the Antaryami of the universal form. Just like we have a gross body, subtle body, and Atma, similarly, universal form has this. This point is also explained in first canto, third chapter end. There also a description of the universal form comes. So, it's like in the gross universal form, with the description which we read, gross universal form, how the different planets are mentioned as the different parts of the universal form. Different demigods, different gross objects are parts of the universal form. That is the gross universal form description. The subtle universal form, that is not described in detail, but it is mentioned. For example, if you go through first canto, third chapter, 1 minute. First canto, third chapter, verse number 33, 1.3.33. यत्रे में सद असद रूपे प्रतिसिद्धे स्वसंविदा अविद्ययात्मनि कृते इति तद ब्रह्म दर्शनम. So when the gross and subtle material forms, which are impositions on the soul in ignorance, are removed by the realization of the devotees, one can realize Brahman. No, in the previous shloka. The 31 and 32. The 32nd shloka, 1.3.32, describes the subtle universal form. Superior to the gross universal form is that form which is invisible. Ataparam yad avyaktam. Divide up specific bodily parts. Avyuda guna vyuhitam. The subtle universal form is invisible. It is divided as specific bodily parts. Adrishta ashruta. It cannot be seen. And ashruta. It cannot be heard. Sa jivo yat punarbhavaha. This is like the subtle body of the jiva, which is the instrument for the rebirth of the jiva. The subtle universal form is described only in this shloka. Subtle universal form, it is invisible. You cannot see it. You cannot hear it. And it is like the subtle body of the jiva. Subtle body, can you see? Can you hear? You cannot hear. You can't see. It is invisible. Similarly, subtle universal form description is given in the shloka, 1.3.32. So just as, I will read the Vishwanath Chakravarti's purport to the shloka, just as yogis worship the visible form of the universe as the Lord, even though it is material, there are other yogis worship a subtle form of the universe as the Lord, even though that is also material. So gross universal form is also material, and subtle universal form is also material. So some yogis worship the visible universal form of the Lord as the Supreme Lord, visible universe as the Lord. Some yogis worship the subtle form of the universe as the Lord. So these two forms are also described in 2.10.35. Amuni Bhagavadrupe Mayate Kyanuvarnite. Ube apina Grishnanti Maya Srishte Vipaschitaha. Ube means two. The wise do not accept these two forms of the Lord described by me, since they are composed of matter. So the gross universal form and subtle universal form, both are material forms of the Lord. Therefore, vipaschitaha na grihnanti. That's why those who are advanced devotees, wise people, they don't meditate on the gross or subtle universal form. And so the subtle universal form is different from the gross form of the universe. It is actually invisible, avyakta. And it is devoid of any specific forms, avyuda guna brahmhita. It does not have any hands or feet. And it cannot be seen or heard. Adrishta ashruta vastuvat. So this is something about the subtle universal form. The reference is 1.3.32 and 2.10.35.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you very much.
Right.
Right.
Okay, we'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Let's chant 3 times Haribol to His Grace Radhika Vallabh Prabhuji for enlightening all of us with his divine knowledge. Hari Bol,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Let's end the session by chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Krishna Paramatma ki jai, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, His Grace Radhika Vallabh Prabhuji ki jai, Gaur Hare Hari Hari
Hari Bo.
Hare.
Hare Krishna.